If your heart ain't iron, it must be marble stone. If your heart ain't iron, it must be marble stone. For your Smith Street mama, baby, show you bone.
My family goes back in Bandon to about 1850. It's been in business for, we've been in business in Bandon in 3 different centuries, in the 1800s, 1900s, up to the present day. Our starting point in the family is Andrew Hickey, who was the first person buried above in St. Patrick's Church. He was buried there in June 1881. He went to the States in the early 40s, around famine time, as most people did at that time, and he went over to make his fortune, and he came back then and married a Cummins girl from Bandon, and that family at that time were merchants in Bandon. They were big merchants in Bandon.
For your Smith Street mama, baby, show you bone.
In 1920, it was a bicycle shop. There were 4 pubs. We also had this place, and at that time, it was a bicycle factories. There were bicycles made, repaired, and sold in the upper part of the shop here. And the lower part was the cigar van, which had the papers and the cigarettes, as we do today, like that kind of. But in October 1920, the upper part of the shop, well, both parts of the shop, were burned down by the Black and Tans as a reprisal for an ambush in Ballinhassig, and that was on October 1920, and it was rebuilt several years later with compensation from the British government. Okay. Now, the Main Street was dug up a few years ago for the laying of gas pipes, and they went up one side and down the other side, and the only business with foundations was this house here, because it was with the compensation and the money paid at that time, we did a proper job, and it started from the base up, and we did proper foundations at that time. So it was rebuilt. In 1940, my parents got married, and they came in here and changed the direction. They did toys and cards and the papers and the cigarettes, and they're all brought into this part of the to the whole shop per se in 1940. Those figurines were the first thing that came into the house here. These figurines up here we have of Humpty Dumpty, Little Bo Peep, and the Woman in the Shoe. They were bought from a theatre workshop which was closing in Dublin at the time, and they brought them down, and the price is still marked in the back in very old money, 1911 and various pieces, not even a pound, and they're here now 67 years at this juncture. There is a little red train up there on which can you get that? Sorry. There's a little red train up here which I had as a sit upon. That was one of the first toys they brought in here, and I think it's from the States. It is a red sit-on train, and I used to pedal merrily up and down the main street on the train. The very interesting thing about when my mother and father were in the early days, they used my mother used to make the dresses for the dolls herself, you know, and they used, and so every doll that we saw in the shop here was unique, and that they had they all different dresses and different styles and different hairstyles, and they're all done. That we got the dolls, it was bare, if you like, and that the mother dressed them accordingly and put on the frills, and it was it was very easy to do toys at that time, because the girls had the dolls and the boys had the guns and holsters, and we were all doing cowboy hats and suits, and they were all running up down the street, bang bang, you know. Yeah. The toy game has changed completely, you know, and that is it's more computer driven and TV driven and these things, and we then found that the major stores in Cork were doing it really at a price that we couldn't afford to buy it, you know. The South Street, as I remember from my school days, that everyone knew where everyone else, and every house, every shop was lived over. This no longer pertains, you know. We live over our shop. Lions live over the shop, but you didn't have to go up as far as Barry Farrell's again for Barry to be. They live over the premises, and there are really very few. There wouldn't be 10 people now, 10 families living over the premises, you know, in Main Street in Bandon. And it's sad, but that is the way that we all knew each other and we all shared each other's joys and tragedies and that kind of thing, you know. And that this no longer pertains really, you know. It is now driven towards the supermarket, the big supermarkets. Really. That another thing is all the roads that they think nothing of going to Cork, just 10 minutes in the Cork in the car, you know, and that is what you're competing with, you know, and that they're off in 10 minutes, quarter hour, you're inside in Wilton and these places in Cork and Mahon and all these places, you know. So this is where the family units are going to really, you know.
Is it a tough environment to survive as a family-run business?
Well, it's not getting any easier. It's not getting easier, you know. That it is really, you know, that you can see in 10 years' time. I would hope there be some family business left in town, but you'll be wondering, you know.
Have you enjoyed your time working as a shopkeeper?
Of course, I have. I've enjoyed every minute of it. You know, it is the interaction between the customers and yourself. You know, and you get the ball hop for whoever supports Man United or Liverpool and that kind of thing. And there's the ball hop, and the same goes for the football and the hurling, the cockman and the curryman, and there's always the bit of crack and the interplay, and they're great fun. You know, to the characters really, and you know that is. That makes it very enjoyable, and certainly I've been here now 37 years, and it's flown along, and as saying, and my good wife is here 28 years tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow's anniversary, and so that we, as I say, we're very happy at it, very happy, you know. And you're here now, and we're giving school books to kids, and I can remember their grandparents bringing their mothers for the buy copybooks and that kind of thing before the school books, and that it's amazing to see the generations coming through. That's my father had a lovely story about this fellow used to come in the morning to him, and he had this habit of tapping his finger on the counter, and he said, you know, he says his grandfather did the same thing. He says, and he had never met his grandfather. His grandfather had died before he was born, and the family nuances and kind of these little traits are coming through, and it's fabulous. I think it's very, very, very enjoyable.
If you're honey and it must be marble stone. If you're honey and it must be marble stone. For your Smith Street mama, baby, show you.
Tea and the sugar and the flour never came as they are now, and they came in big sacks, and the grocers themselves had to weigh them. They just weigh the tea, big chests of Barry's tea. And not alone the big chests of Barry's tea and the big bags of flour, but there was always a waiting list, right? The bags of flour went to make sheets or drying up clothes or anything like that. There was the tea chests, they used to use them, I think, as playpens for the younger kids and things like that.
John C. Hickey had his own currency. He used it in the bars, a 2D coin, which bought the pints in the bar, which you could use to buy pints in the bar, and they were given out as prizes in pool games and snooker games in the pub, and he had his own head on it, on the 2D coin.
Is this here in Bandon?
Here in Bandon, yeah.
He had his own currency?
He had his own currency, yeah.
What date is this?
You're going back to 1920s, I presume, 1920s, that kind of, and he had his own currency, he had his own, it was on one side only, the other side was blank, but he had his own head on the currency.
Could you use the currency in any of the bars, or was it just one?
Well, just in our own pubs, in the four pubs.
The four pubs?
In the four pubs, yeah, it was good for a pint anyway. and the pint was good too by all accounts, in the four pubs at that time. To the guests, and the old penny sweets, and they're still flying, you know. They still sell away all these old, they used to be penny sweets, other 5 cents. The jelly babies and these yolks were amazing out there. They survived the ravages of time.
But the women then with you, Lord won't let me pray. I can sit right here, look on Jackson Avenue.
Rita, about 10 years ago, saw the opening for school books. And for the last 10 years we've been doing school books, and thankfully, obviously the business changes in Bandon, and that obviously papers and the cigarettes and that kind of thing it is in most places, most supermarkets, so that the extra line is that we found it very successful.